All right, enough with the chalkboarding. It is time for us to log into ThousandEyes, and that's exactly what we've done here. So we can go out to ThousandEyes.com and we can register and create an account. In fact, Cisco will give us a 15-day trial, at least at the time of this video, to be able to log in and start to poke around ourselves. And as I keep saying, because there are cloud agents already in existence, I don't have to do anything to my network in order to play around with ThousandEyes. Now, if I want to complete this course and have all the experience necessary to not only deploy ThousandEyes into my network, but probably also pass the exam, then I'm going to need to understand endpoint agents and enterprise agents and be able to deploy those as well. And certainly we'll cover that here in this course. But for now, just to log in and again start to poke around with the interface, that's where the cloud agents can really come in handy. Now, a couple of things. First of all, we have this work pane over here, this visibility pane, whatever we want to call it. This is where all of the information is going to be on the right, and as is with a lot of user interfaces, we have this navigation pane on the left. So we can start by looking and seeing that we have cloud and enterprise agents in one section, and then endpoint agents in another. And so let's go ahead and start to drill in here a little bit, and we'll see that we're actually already on the cloud and enterprise agent side and views. So a lot of what we're going to end up doing is, first of all, creating tests and then going to the views section to analyze that test. So if I go to test settings, for example, we'll see that I've created this HTTP test. It is a web type, which specifically page loading. So we're actually asking the cloud agents to go out and load a full website and give us the breakdown of how long it takes to load that website and to do this regularly. So I can look at all of the configurations here. We see that we're doing this once an hour. I have selected 5 different agents, and these are global agents. So again, all of these already exist. We've got global agents in Singapore, in London. I've got one in Fremont, California, one in Seattle, Washington, so a couple in the US, and then one in Sydney, Australia. So I've selected 5 of the 28 cloud agents that Cisco allows me to select for this particular type of test. So those are the details of the test. What I can do then is go back to views, and we'll see that at the very top here, I can select which test I want to look at. So I can look at this HTTP test and get a lot of information over here about what this page test looks like. So how long did it take to load the page? Well, at this moment, let's see here, looking at the date, it says 2024, June 19th, 2 o'clock UTC. It took an average of 1,598 milliseconds. So it's about 1.6 seconds it took to load the web page. What web page are we loading? Well, we said cisco.com. It says it right here. And so that is how long it took to load at that particular time, 2 o'clock. But we'll notice that it went down at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock is back up, 5 o'clock is down again, 6 o'clock took over 2 seconds. And then we can compare this historically. Up here, we can kind of drag and see more. This particular test has actually been running for over a week in my system. Probably could stop running it, but ultimately, hey, it's nice to have a week's worth of data, and we see that we're well within the norm. As much as anything, I might look at it and say, well, is 2.3 seconds, is that too long? Well, the best thing to do is to compare it again to all the other data. We see that we actually spike up pretty regularly into that range, and so it's probably fine as long as users again aren't submitting tickets and saying this specific site is down. Now down here at the bottom we have lots of other ways of consuming this information. Specifically, we've got the ability to look at a map, and my resolution here is not ideal for navigating this interface when I'm trying to record as well, and so just understand that we can zoom out and zoom in and such. And so if I look at this map, we see green dots. Remember, I had those 3 that were outside the US and 2 inside the US. And because they're so close together, ThousandEyes just groups them together into one dot. But I can very quickly tell that all of them are green. If any of them were yellow or red, I would know that there is a problem. And so that's the map option here. I can also look at this table option, and it presents in tabular format all of my different agents, as well as a lot of information about them, and ultimately what their page load time was on particular testing moments here. And so I can click here and I can probably get some more information, but ultimately this map and table, these are just 2 different ways of demonstrating what's happening. I can then also click on waterfall. Waterfall is a fascinating one, especially when it comes to loading web pages, because what it does is, first of all, I have to pick which one of my agents I want to use. I'll pick Sydney here. And when I scroll down, it's going to show me each individual component that I have to load for this web page. Remember, this is a page load test. I'm loading the entire page, including every image, every link, every HTTP component. And so as I scroll down, what we find here is that some of these requests can happen at the same time. I know it gets a little bit tricky to point things out because of the pop-ups, but if I pause here for a moment and I look at this pop-up, it's telling me that this specific piece of information looks like it's part of a JavaScript, but this took a total of 300 milliseconds, and I can see the breakdown here of what was taking a long time. In fact, I just had to sit there waiting for 200 milliseconds, which is fine. That's actually a normal part of the HTTP process. I'm processing a lot of this information all at once, and then we see that as certain things load, I can start loading other things, and eventually it shows at the end how long it took and what the final thing was to load. And so ultimately, how long it took to load this web page. So waterfall view, pretty cool. So that's this HTTP test. It's just one test. It's just one example of doing a page load test that we define on the test side and we look at on the view side. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about all the different test options that we have available to us, because we can go well beyond just simple HTTP tests. But from here, let's look at the endpoint agents. What's pretty interesting about this is we get views from the agent, or from the endpoint perspective. In my test environment right now, I only have a single agent. Let's take a look at what that agent is. It is something called Jeff Desktop. And so we can see a lot about this. We can see the memory is running at about 32%. It's running at about 4.7% CPU. You can look at it historically a little bit, see what exactly it's doing, how it's doing it. We can look at my network access speeds, which, by the way, this machine is actually not on Wi-Fi, it's on the wire, so that's why we see that we have 1 gigabit per second, we don't have a signal quality. But imagine being able to just log into ThousandEyes and find out if a particular user is just having Wi-Fi connectivity issues. Maybe their signal strength is low. So being able to fire up a particular user's device and take a look at it is very powerful. So from here, I can look at my gateway access. Is my gateway causing me problems? Doesn't look like it is at this point. And if we were using a VPN, as we'll talk about later, ThousandEyes can look inside and outside the VPN, which is actually pretty incredible. So those are the details of my agent. Now, once again, let me actually click down here to test settings. We will see that I'm running some real user tests, as it calls it, and we're checking out cisco.com, we're checking out docs.google.com, and the agent that's installed here on this PC is running tests out to these different platforms. So when I go over to views, we're going to find that things look a little bit different. So I can take a look at my errors. I can give an overall experience score, so that's cool. But then I can look at the tests here, and I can see my HTTP server test to the Google Docs suite. I can click over to network and look at this. I can actually see the path visualization. So I can see whether there's any problems between the device itself, the gateway, as well as potentially different nodes within the internet. And that's what's pretty powerful about all of this, is we can take a quick look and see where in the network we might be having some problems. And that's partly powered by the fact that we've got agents running on our endpoints. Now from here, we can click down here. We can see that we've got the ability to deploy dashboards. These are very powerful, especially for Knox, to be able to have online, and we can customize these, create all kinds of different dashboards. It comes with some built-in ones. It comes with templates now. And so we can look at a lot of different options here as far as our dashboards are concerned. And it's something to just have on the big screen in the NOC, so we can keep an eye on things and see very quickly if something goes down. Maybe even having that map up here would be pretty powerful, and we can certainly do that if we so choose. Alerts we talked about. We're going to go into a lot of detail about how to create alerts and alert rules and make sure we're alerting on the right things. And interestingly, we have this concept of sharing. So here's the question. Let's say that we're having a problem, and I want to share the fact that we had this problem with, let's say, the wide area network with my WAN provider. What am I going to do? Well, I could just grab a screenshot and send an image over and say, hey, check this image out, but it's not as helpful. I want my WAN provider to be able to click around and see that I'm not making this up, and also maybe get some more information out of it. But I don't want to give them access to my ThousandEyes account to log in and see all this information that contains a lot of sensitive information as well. So what we can do is we can actually go to snapshots. That's the idea here, is I can create a snapshot of a particular situation, and from here I can share this with people even outside of my organization and people who don't necessarily have ThousandEyes accounts. And so let's go ahead and go back to one of these tests here, the endpoint agent. I'm going to look at the views here, and when I look at the network, and let's see here, up here at the very top we see save and share. So I can click this button, and you see it's going to create a snapshot that is going to contain all this information. I can customize how much information to share. I can anonymize some amount of information here. I can decide if anybody with the link is able to view the link, and then I can get the link here. So let me save and share, and then I'm going to open a new tab and enter in that URL, and what we see is a user interface for that snapshot. I can click around here. I can look at specific information points. Did we have a big issue over here or something along those lines? I see the path visual. Well, I blocked it because of anonymizing the data, but we could see the path visualization here. We could go to the map and see information. All of this is interactive. So that's the power of a ThousandEyes snapshot and being able to click around in the interface. And so I can even take this specific snapshot, load it into our Adept platform, and I'm going to include this link so you can click on it and take a look around if you so desire. But that's the idea here, is we can actually grab snapshots and share them with people that will help us to troubleshoot issues. So that is an overview of the ThousandEyes interface. We'll be spending a lot of time in this interface. And so the next thing we want to talk about is just making sure that we have access to the ThousandEyes platform in whatever way is required in order for us to follow along with this course and be performing these configurations ourselves.